Currently listening to trends in the papers. How are you doing today? I hope that you've had a wonderful week. I know that is more or less a rhetorical question because it's been a very, very eventful week. A lot of things have happened. A lot of decisions have been made. A lot of inconveniences that we've had to deal with as a people, from the fuel scarcity to the cash crunch, the unavailability of cash, small, medium enterprises going through a difficult time, unable to make a certain business transaction, which has caused them to make quite a number of losses. And then we should not even begin to talk about the violence that was born out of these issues that I just listed. So I know that a number of you are going through a very difficult time. Well, a number of us, because it would not be reasonable for me to exempt myself from that situation. But I know that we are with you. We understand the situation, and that's why we're doing everything we can to keep you abreast of latest developments regarding these issues that seem to have every single one of us in a chokehold. Again, good morning to you. Sage Babalola is my name. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos, and trends in the paper is what is happening this very moment. Of course, to join us for analysis, for conversation this morning, as always, we're joined by Fuad Said. Good morning to you, Fuad.
Yeah, good morning, Sage. How are you doing?
Fuad, pressure to wow. There's pressure.
There's
pressure.
The pressure will come down.
There's pressure. Good morning. Thank you for being here, Fuad.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. All right. So we do have the papers for this morning with us: The Guardian, Vanguard, The Nation, and of course the Punch newspaper. So let's begin today's conversation with the Guardian newspaper. Let's look at the front page. The top story here: federal government insists on February 10, asks Apex Court to dismiss state suit. The writers to this headline: Buhari meets Emefiele Malami after Supreme Court ruling. IMF asks federal government, CBN to extend cash swap deadline. Continue to spend old Naira note, El Rufai tells Nigerians. Cash scarcity defies Supreme Court ruling. Cash in circulation may have dropped by 80%. So let's look at the story very briefly. Uncertainties trailing the Central Bank of Nigeria's Naira redesign policy continued yesterday when the Supreme Court overruled an earlier injunction granted by a high court in the Federal Capital Territory, restraining the federal government and the CBN from undermining the February 10 deadline for the ongoing currency swap. So, Fuad, I feel like a number of people, they heaved a sigh of relief after the Supreme Court suspended the initial deadline of, it's supposed to be tomorrow, I believe, but the Supreme Court suspended it. And Nigerians are saying maybe this would bring some sort of respite from all the tussles and all the struggle of trying to get cash, the queues, and maybe even a reduction in the violence that we have seen that was born out of these difficult situations. But it would seem like Emefiele and President Muhammadu Buhari are not exactly on the same page with the Supreme Court, and we've seen advisors from international community, the IMF specifically, asking that the federal government, the CBN, need to extend the swap deadline. And Governor El Rufai, on the other hand, if you read this report further, says that the people should continue spending their old Naira note. It doesn't matter. In fact, he went on to say that once Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu wins the presidential elections, they would reverse this policy that seems to be causing tension in the country. So all of these things, put together, how do we make sense of this? I would not like to insinuate that maybe the CBN governor is trying to, contend the decision of the court, because like I said before, he's not exactly comfortable with the decision or the injunction that has been given by the Supreme Court.
Well, the government generally is not comfortable with the decision of the Supreme Court, so that's the federal government. And so you have the Attorney General Malami that has also gone to court, to the same Supreme Court, to seek an injunction, again cancelling this very verdict of the Supreme Court based on the issue of jurisdiction. So you have a situation now where the ruling of when I say an interim injunction of the Supreme Court is being challenged on the basis of jurisdiction. I've been trying to put myself together to say I'm going to really make comment on this, because again, in all of the back and forth, in all of the statements and counter statements, position and counter position of the government, the governor, the CBN, the Attorney General, the other Nigerian out there is caught in the web of this confusion. Again, if all of these things we are seeing are done and born out of conscience to improve the laws of ordinary Nigeria. One would have said, oh, this is the topic, we are trying to deepen our democracy, we are trying to rebuild the nation. But I'm seeing a situation where all of this has gone political. It has become more of politics than a policy to really better the laws of ordinary Nigeria. And again, it all started when the CBN government exposed himself to politics. That's why I said no matter what it does now, it's almost very difficult for anybody to defend it. Because we saw what happened when, as a CBN governor, there were attempts made by him and maybe colleagues and supporters to make him the president. And those were daring moves that we saw at that time. Again, this is the way to deepen our democracy. We like the fact that our laws are being tested. Like I said, the Attorney General on behalf of the federal government and the CBN is challenging this in court. The state Supreme Court on the basis of jurisdiction. I've seen several lawyers make comments on whether the Supreme Court has jurisdiction on this matter or not.
Or the Federal High
There are
Court.
also sections, there are also sections of the Constitution about what exactly the Supreme Court can entertain exclusively without recourse to the lower court before it gets to the Supreme Court. Whether cases between the federal government and government can be entertained exclusively by the Supreme Court without starting from the High Court. Even before the Supreme Court ruling, the federal High Court had actually ruled on this same matter. But again, I listened to Michael Zekuna and said, look, what has happened at the Supreme Court is an interim injunction that everybody maintains status quo until February 15 when we hear this case properly. And again, we have a Malami. Like I said, before the governor went to court and spoke to the president, and his body language and the response have shown that he doesn't want to back down on this policy, no matter the excuses that they are giving. So again, we are caught in the web of judicial confusion, and some of us are waiting to see whether the Supreme Court will overrule itself on this particular case. Again, lawyers are explaining that what we have is an interim injunction. The case should be acted properly. I'm sure at that point the issue of jurisdiction will also be brought up. The governor of Rivers State has also said he's going to join the other governors of this state and continue to push through. Like I said again, I read several parts of the Constitution. And there are a lot of loopholes, a lot of lacuna that lawyers can play with. There are different technicalities they can bring up from different sections of the Constitution. Again, it's the beauty of democracy. That's the way to deepen our democracy. But again, let us ask ourselves, nobody is against the redesign of the Naira, the mop-up of the old currency, or against the idea that we're going to help fight vote buying, or, fight people who have illicit funds, people who have kept ransom and all that. Brilliant idea when it was introduced. But again, we are talking about implementation. Say, if you and I wake up today, and we go to an ATM, we go to our bank, and they give us enough notes for our daily transaction, are we going to complain?
Not at all.
No, we're not complaining about the policy now. What we are complaining about is the lack of thinking to implement this policy properly. So that ordinary Nigerians, like I always tell people, look, you can sit down in a comfort zone and think everybody can cope with this problem. Look, see, there are Nigerians, their entire network, what they do business with is not up to 10,000 naira.
All right.
They don't even have the capacity to go and open an account. All they do is that their 10,000 naira, they do their daily businesses with the little profit that comes with it, they survive on it. Now they are caught in the web of this confusion. Some of them have been pushed to go and return their money to get the little cash to do their daily life. So it is not everybody that is interested in the politics of this matter. They just want to live their normal life, and those are the people that are concerned about. Look, I told Sandra, or it on Monday, that we are going to see more court cases. People are going to see our face different courts to speak different injunctions and rulings. And those rulings are going to come out. So again, in all of this, I pray that our mission of this constitution are eventually Nigeria succeed. We have a country to protect, and we must protect it at all costs.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fuad. So you can check the front page of The Guardian for this story, and if you would like to read the full story, you can see the rest on page 6 of The Guardian newspaper. Fuad already spoke about it during his initial analysis. That's the position of Wike, who has hailed the Supreme Court, and Rivers is set to join suit. That's regarding the Naira swap. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has commended the Supreme Court of Nigeria for saving democracy by halting the central bank from banning the use of old note after February 10, 2023. So Rivers State is set to join the governors of Zamfara, Kogi, and Kaduna State in the suit against the CBN and, well, the CBN basically. All right, let's move on from that. We have another story here. Immigration intercepts 6,216 voters card, identity card, others from foreigners. It's on the front page of The Guardian. Let's check page 3 for information on these stories. So, Nigeria Immigration Service yesterday announced that it confiscated 6,216 identity document, including voters card and national identification card. Now, the NIS Comptroller General Issa Idris has said that while showcasing the confiscated document, Idris said NIS has reached out to the National Identity Management Commission, that's NIMC, and he has asked them to expunge the details of the imposture from the renewal of the card. And they've also introduced surveillance that deploys technology to monitor activities at the borders. So the Immigration Service yesterday they intercepted over 6,000 documents, national identification, number, the cards, the voters card, and what have you. And they've taken extra step. They've contacted the NIMC and say that the details of the individuals whose details are on those cards should be expunged from the database in case they try to renew it, at least pending the time they investigate. And also surveillance has been provided to monitor activities around the borders. Fuad, how exactly did these individuals, they're being called foreigners in the papers, how did they get their hands on the document of over 6,000 people, the voters card of over 6,000 people? How did they get it? How did they move it down to the border?
It's completely porous. And again, they have relations across the border. And of course, it will suffice. The same thing happens in the north. You have in places like Taraba State, even the Bakassi area in Cross River. So you have people from Cameroon coming who claim they are from Taraba State. In fact, the names are so similar. If you go to some parts of Taraba State and Adamawa, their names are so close to the names you hear in parts of southern Cameroon. So it is easy because of the porous nature of our borders. But again, if the immigration has been able to detect this and they are sure about what they are saying, I think this news should be expunged from the registers of NIN and the national ID card and even our voter card. But I'm just saying that look, some of these issues are difficult to detect because of the porous nature of our border and the fact that a lot of the border areas they are interrelated in terms of tribe, relations, cousins, and all of that. It's just what it is, really.
Fuad, don't you think that these individuals whose cards were taken, because that's the best way I can describe it, don't you think that it will be disenfranchised? The fact that their cards were taken, we don't know how these individuals got the cards, and also, we're not going to talk about the kind of effect this would have on the general election if certain individuals at this point, just barely 3 weeks to the election, still have access to people's cards and they're taking it across the border.
I'm surprised that they have people's cards anyways, but again, it's good that the nation has been able to detect this, and we just have to wait to see, because again, it's still under investigation. I think we just have to wait to see what will come from the investigation. But I have to answer the initial question of how do people come in and all of that. I'm just saying that look, these things are too close to sometimes.
Right. Well, thank you, Fuad. Page 3 of the Guardian newspaper is where you will get more details on this story. Let's move on now. Atiku Huriwa wants Lagos wreck removed over alleged partisanship. Page 4 is where Fuad, wait first. Page 4 is where you will see this story. So let's look at this very briefly. A presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has called on INEC to remove the resident electoral commissioner rec in Lagos, Olusegun Agbaje, for alleged partisanship and compromise. So he described let me tell you why this is happening. So he says that they're insisting that they're going to work with the Lagos Park and Garage Management Committee for the transportation of election materials, because the Alternative Transport Union, that's the NURTW, the National Union of Road Transport Workers, and the Road Transport Employees Association of Nigeria are having barred in Lagos. So the concern now is that former Vice president, that's Atiku Abubakar, is saying that is he unaware, that's the Lagos REC, is he unaware that the leader of that particular transport union, that's the Parks and Garages Management, is, pretty much a strong supporter of the APC? And if we're really serious about preventing election fraud or sabotage or interference and manipulations, we should make sure that no political party has a hand in the process. So you being aware that those who are in the union, that particular transport union, are very strong supporters of the All Progressives Congress, should tell you that decision is going to be counterproductive. Fad, I already know your take, but please go ahead.
No. This is not the first time that INEC uses members of the NURTW. In fact, that has been the tradition with them, because that's the organized transport union that is easy to use. All you need to do is to get the number of buses, get them ready, and all of that. So in terms of logistics of moving things around, they have always worked. That NURTW is not limited to Lagos alone.
Yeah.
It's in all parts of the country. And the reality is that these members too have their own different biases across different states. In Oyo State, for example, they've also banned NURTW. The guy of the park management is a strong supporter of the governor, who is a PDP member. I think they call him auxiliary or something. I'm sure that INEC in Oyo State will likely have to work the same thing. Because that's the organized union that they can work, transport union they can work with. I agree with the idea that, there should be concerns about the partisanship of the head of the park management in Lagos, because what has happened is that there's no NURTW in Lagos, which is bad. But I can tell you that most of the members of NURTW are still part of the park management. They just transformed because of what NURTW was bad, because of the crisis, fighting and all of that. But the structure is still almost the same, because all of the members of NURTW are still part of the park management. You say all these guys are still part of this. So I'm wondering what exactly do they want INEC to do in Lagos? Which is the organized transport union they can use? And I say this again, we have to be careful to standardize everything and make it look as if, any little thing has been done, there has to be suspicion. Yes, I understand that yes, questions can be raised. But hey, we have an election to run. If INEC thinks that these are the guys they can work with, I'm going to ask myself, okay, if the park management are the ones to transport these logistics, what exactly are they going to do with it? Are they the ad hoc officials that will be at the polling unit operating beavers? Are they the ones that will be counting the vote? Are they working at all as admin staff or anything? Again, we can talk about park management. Are you also aware that most of the ad hoc staff too, politicians have in hand with the way INEC has employed them? But the reality is that we have to be vigilant. People should go out there and vote, stand with their vote, ensure it counts, and be a part of the process. We should be careful to allow the politicians to distract us with some of these things that they know are just being fatal and just an attempt to scandalize the entire thing. Okay, which union did you want? Have they just been using NURTW? I can tell you that even before they were made park management, those elections in Lagos before they have been using them. Have they not been close to Asiwaju? Did they just mean that they knew that it's close to Asiwaju? Have elections not held in other states with NURTW members who are also participants? I think we should be careful. We should motivate the senior movement and ensure that we have a free, fair, credible election. And let us move on with our lives. The confusion is getting too much.
Fine. Is there really no alternative? There's nothing that can be done. I mean, is it not possible that before the election, 2 years before the election, if possible, there's a union, there's a transport union, there's something for logistics where individuals will be hired. At least they will properly scrutinize them to make sure that maybe not completely devoid of bias, but they're to an extent, non-partisan. And then these individuals form a logistics union of some kind, and you know that their specific function every 4 years is to transport election materials. Would that be a stretch?
So I didn't get that. I think I lost.
Is it possible to create a union, scrutinize the members, try that to a large extent they're not as partisan as many people are accusing the parks management of being? You know that this individual, their function every 4 years, they'll form a transport union, and their function once every 4 years is to transport election materials. That's it. You don't have to work with the already available unions.
Well, it's not impossible, but it happens every 4 years. After you form that, what happens after the elections? So I think in the thinking of INEC, it's easier to work with these guys. They have the structure, they have the buses, they have their drivers. You understand? They have the structure. All you need to do is just plug and play. Okay, we need this number of buses from your members and all of that, and then They deliver the material. All basically they are doing is to deliver materials. They are not ad hoc staff of INEC. They are not the presiding officers. They use core members for that. You understand what I'm saying? They are not the ones that will operate beavers. They are not the ones that will give out ballot papers to people. And again, that's why we talk about structure. All of the polling units will also have party leaders or political parties to monitor what happens there.
Yeah.
And that's why INEC has brought up beavers. They step over voting. They brought up the IRS for real-time transmission of results electronically. I think we should just allow these elections to hold peacefully. Don't overeat the policy. And again, we appeal to all politicians. Don't overeat the policy. And they should just have to manage the expectations of their supporters. There will be winners and there will be losers.
Right.
But Nigeria must win eventually.
All right, page 4 of the Guardian newspaper. That is where you would find that particular story. Still on page 4, Ajaro takes over as NLC boss, pledges to reconnect Nigerians with Labour movement. Congratulations to Ajaro, I guess. Hopefully the Labour Congress is, more proactive. I don't mean any disrespect, but they're more proactive in dealing with issues that have, civil issues, I guess, and they're more, boots on the ground is what I'll say. Anyways, the new president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero, has vowed to reconnect Nigerians with the movement in the struggle for betterment of Nigerian workers. So that's basically it. So there's a new boss, there's a new NLC boss, and I guess it's too early to start, and we don't want to hip expectations and then be disappointed at the end of the day. So let's see what he does, at least in the first 6 months of his tenure, let's call it that. That's it for the Guardian newspaper. Actually, let's move on to the another paper that we have here. That is the Vanguard newspaper. The headline is pretty much the same. Protest trails Supreme Court order. Federal government seeks dismissal of ruling. Riders to this story. Protesters praise Emefiele, AGF Malami for Naira redesign policy. Emefiele meets Buhari after ruling on Naira swap deadline. Apex Bank halted CBN's February 10 deadline. Kaduna Kogi Zamfara state suit will be heard February 15. Tinubu hails governors for saving Nigeria from anarchy. It is not yet Uhuru for vote buyers, Labour Party. Extend old notes deadline, IMF urge Buhari and the CBN. All of this has actually been addressed, but if you would like to say something else, maybe the protesters that are praising Emefiele and AGF for the Naira redesign policy, if you'd like to speak about that particular rider. So there are people who are actually 100% on board with the decision of the Central Bank of Nigeria with the redesign policy. They're okay with the redesign, they're okay with the deadline. They think that it's necessary if we are going to ensure that we have a free, fair, credible election. I mean, it's expected, right? There's some people who will be on board with the policy and there are some who would not be comfortable with the policy. It's just that the majority are uncomfortable with the implementation process. Fuad, what do you have to say about this?
Well, for those that are protesting and supporting AGF Malami and the president on this decision, I think they are right. Maybe they are not, they are not affected by it. Maybe they are not. Maybe they are not for. They've been able to find a way to cope with the destruction that we're seeing in the lives of women in Nigeria. So I wouldn't want to question their right to support. But again, we are a country governed by laws, and that's why it's good to stress all of this in the court. Again, that's the way to deepen democracy. We're a democratic nation, so eventually we'll see what happens at the Supreme Court. We have a date to February 15. See what comes, to see what comes out of the Supreme Court on this particular matter. But I'm saying again that look, nobody, I'm sorry, personally I'm not against the policy. I'm not against change. This is not the first time look, to finish the implementation evaluation. If you do a policy, no matter how good it is, and we are not able to implement properly, then it's a failed policy. Nigerians just want to know. They need to go to the ATM machines and see dispense money. They need to go and live their normal life. They don't want to be caught in the web of this bad implementation of the policy. That's what I'm saying. But again, it's within the rights of those that are protesting to protest and support what they want to support. But again, say, have you also detected from hypocrisy in all of these issues? And I'll tell you why. When this policy was announced about 3 months ago, the same people that condemned it then, we were saying, is that what we need now? Why are they changing the Naira? Or why are they giving deadline for we need the withdrawal limit? Is that what will help Nigerians for all the suffering, insecurity? Why is the Buhari government just doing this? Is that our priority? So I would not suddenly think that the same set of people are the ones that are not saying their mouth and are supporting this policy. Remember when the new news came out, the way they ridiculed it. Oh, you just do blue, it is red, you just change color. Why have those set of people now suddenly change their mind to start supporting this? And we need to be careful, and I think I need to say this to those people. If you think there's any political gain from the suffering of Nigeria, then I don't know where your thinking is coming from. Because I guess there are some people who are fight back who think that there's something we can gain politically from this chaos.
Yes.
I don't know where that thinking is coming from.
All right, well, I think enough said. Anybody that can read in between the line would understand what you have said.
There's a lot of hypocrisy on this issue.
All right, you can see this on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. Page 5 has the full story. So let's move on. PDP APC clash over plots to scuttle polls. Okay, we might as well make a song out of this, honestly. But polls, we found solutions to petrol cash. Okay, no, PDP APC clash over plots to scuttle polls. The writers to this story: APC in fresh plot to scuttle election, says PDP. Fingers ruling party lawmakers as arrowhead. Demands probe of 22.5 billion naira APC cash swap deal. We are not afraid. APC denies scheming to postpone election. So, the National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Debo Ologunagba, I'm sorry, who disclosed this in a statement in Abuja, said the latest plot was one out of a series of orchestrated plots by the APC presidential campaign to derail the 2023 general election and put the nation democracy in jeopardy. I'm quoting now. The PDP informs of the moves by the Tinubu presidential campaign to allegedly use certain compromised APC members in both Senate and House of Representatives to create tension in the polity and derail the conduct of the election. Of course, the APC has responded and said that the report is blatantly false and reckless and bears no iota of credibility. It's just for headline. Fuad, are you shocked? Is this not just basically?
I just want to appeal to both the APC and the PDP and every politician out there. These statements are deliberate. They wake up every day, issue statements just inside the polity. They have facts to these things. These things are mere propaganda, just mere misinformation and disinformation, just to rile people up unnecessarily. I think we need to appeal to them to just be responsible for one about some of these their statements. If you go on Twitter now, say, to check statements of spokespersons of political parties, you'll be shocked. I stumbled onto one, Femi Fani-Kayode. He said he's been sick for 2 weeks and that he's back. Hey, go and check what he just posted. I'm afraid. He said he's ready to take people on, he's ready to fight anybody, and it's across board. We have a dealing in who continues to make statements that you just have to wonder and fear that, look, should Atiku win? Is this the kind of human beings that are running around Aston Villa? The same if Fani-Kayode has started the game on Twitter now that he's going to battle anybody, if you see the name calling. And the same thing for Ologunagba. What with all of these insinuations and postulations and that they know have no substance is just to pick up the policy, write people up unnecessarily. Can we just have our life back after this election? Can we have a safe country after this election with the way the politicians are behaving? But this is the same pattern.
But since people already know that this is how it happens every election year, after year, why is it that people are still riled up? It's really dependent on you to determine how you interpret information. So since you know that these come up every time, the leadership selection process comes up, why is it that people still go on ahead to allow themselves, fall victim to this statement and get riled up and start to perpetrate violence in the country?
See, that's the problem with that's the problem with data storage. You are able to decipher this thing, you are able to dissect these issues. Maybe because of your level of exposure and education. A lot of the people that go to their rallies and campaigns don't even have an idea of what you guys are talking about. They are just riled up by their statements, they are ready to go out there and kill for them and all of these kind of things. That's the problem because they still don't have one vote. So, look, no matter how the community will speak now in the studio, it is still the same vote of the person that does not understand anything, is the same quality of vote of the person that understands the things we are talking about. So they know the people they are talking to. They are not going to talk to you and I, who can see through their hypocrisy. They are talking to those who cannot see through those things. and those guys are ready to go out there and do their bidding, cause the chaos.
Right. Well, page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper has that information. We're still on page 9, by the way. Another headline, polls. We have found solutions to petrol cash scarcity. A statement from INEC. Let's look at this. The writers to the story briefs FEC on Commission's preparedness, insists election will hold as scheduled, to brief Council of State tomorrow, says beavers will be deactivated when snatched. Chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, who gave the assurance while speaking to the State House of Correspondents, has said that they have found solutions to the problems that had been stated earlier. Remember, INEC had brought to our attention that, the fuel scarcity, the cash crunch, even the violence that we've seen, come up in different states of the country might be impediments to the conduct of the 2023 general election. Well, INEC has come out again to say, yes, we acknowledge the presence of these problems, but we have also come up with creative solutions to make sure that the election is not affected. And let me tell you the solutions that they have preferred to these problems. With regards to logistic, the whole issue with the fuel scarcity, they say the first one, availability of petroleum products. We have had a meeting with the National Union of Road Transport Workers, and they have raised the concern. And after that meeting, we have spoken with the leadership of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. And right now, there is a technical working committee. They would use over 900 land mega station as well as floating mega station nationwide for the purpose of stocking products to ensure the Commission doesn't suffer any encumbrances in movement. With regards to the currency issue, they have spoken to the CBN governor, and he has assured them that the Commission will not suffer any encumbrance on that score as well. So, and also with regards to the beavers, apparently, if you decide to steal the beavers, it's not going to be very useful for you, because the minute you snatch it, it will be deactivated immediately. I mean, laudable, right?
Yeah, of course. I agree that INEC will be able to sort itself out. Luckily, they've been able to speak with the CBN, which I think will make some alternative plans to have cash to sort out their cash problems. Again, a lot of their vendors need to be paid in cash. For the conduct of the elections, transporters, a lot of vendors will have to do some logistics work for them, have to be paid in time with cash. So I'm sure the CBN will make solutions for them. The same thing with NNPC, I think they promised that all of the mega stations of the NNPC across the country will be available for them to store their buses, store the boats that they'll be using for movement of logistics. The third issue is what I don't know what INEC could be doing, because again, it's not something that can be resolved easily, and that's the issue of insecurity that we still have, which is the third issue that you talked about. I think that again goes back to the president, who needs to do a lot of work to secure Nigerians on election day, before an election day, and even after the election day.
Right. Well, but just one more question on that. I don't want us to overstretch it, but still, do you think that this is enough to deal with the problem? I know that they say we've spoken to, stakeholders in all the aspects where problems are likely to happen, but is it enough really to deal with the issue? Is a different thing to say we have it under control, is a different thing to actually have it under control, or at this time we should not bother questioning INEC's capability to deal with these issues that they have raised, issues that, mind you, they said were capable of causing a postponement of the election.
Well, if they tell us it's derailing the elections, causing postponement and all of that, and they are now telling us that they solved those problems, they found solutions to those problems, I think we just have to trust them. Again, we are almost bound to trust them. We have no other choice than to trust INEC. Where is the alternative? We have to trust INEC. They are the umpire that want to conduct the election. I think we have to give them all the support. I like the fact that the speakers of the shoe, but we need to support them. We need to give them the moral support, because again, we have no choice but to just support INEC to do the job.
All right. Let's move on from this. Well, the full story is on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. So let's move on to page 13. But the headline, federal government blames profiteers for petrol price hike. Of course, the blame game is playing out again. But let's look at this. Federal government blames profiteers for hike in petrol price. The federal government yesterday blamed greed and the rush by petroleum marketers to make illicit profits from hardship of Nigerians for the rising cost of petrol across the country. So the federal government said that we should hold the collar of the petroleum marketers, that they're the one that is doing it. And I don't know why nobody wants to really take responsibility for what's happening. We know everybody involved, right? But they keep saying it's you that do it, it's you that not do it, you're the one. And federal government keeps insisting it's the marketers. We've done what we can, we've given you the price, but the marketers are the ones who are insisting on selling at exorbitant prices. But marketers are also saying we're not buying at cheap prices. In fact, they went as far as asking, the filling stations to close down, though they have reversed that publication that was put out yesterday, I believe. But they're saying this is a business. We cannot follow that rule, that price rule that you have set, and the federal government is still insisting the current cost of PMS in the country is because of the greed of the marketers. Is that information we should just take at face value that is the marketer responsible?
Which one do we go with?
I don't know.
Yes, the GMG or NNP says something different. Now the Minister of State for Petroleum is saying something different.
Yeah.
Trying to blame this on the marketers. If you go with the analysis of the GMD of NNPC, who said that there was a glitch, and somehow I think he tried to explain the glitch that it was more about they said, look, the NNPC is speaking as enough stock, has enough petrol to serve the country for more than 3 months. But the problem is the movement of the product, because again, a lot of the pipelines that were supposed to be used to move them have been vandalized.
Yeah.
He said that. Then even the issue of Hitman, the same NNPC said that look, the issue is initially there was so these independent marketers having direct access to buy the commodities. So they have to go into the secondary market. If they are buying at higher the price, that's why they are selling for 300 and above, because they need to make profit. So now the NNPC said, look, the reason they are forced out to them, if independent marketers cannot buy directly at the official price, so it means that they can now sell at 185. As I speak to you, say, I've seen a number of independent marketers now who have reverted to the official price now. So the NNPC admitted that the entire payment was from them, and that was why he said the NNPC GMD apologizing to Nigerians that he was a glitch. They are working on it, even though I said that all of the things he said yesterday was not terrible. But again, he admitted the problem was from them. It was a glitch. They were trying to fix it. They are working with the marketers. I mean, he said they are the major marketers, they are independent marketers, and they are now going to direct access to the independent marketers to buy food directly from the depot at the regulated price. So where is the greed coming from? Again, everybody wants to be greedy somehow.
Yeah.
If you create the opportunity for me to be greedy, you take advantage of it. So I think the Minister of State for Petroleum should go and fix the glitch that they talked about, which are giving some of these child marketers the opportunity, to racket and profit on Nigerians illegally. So we should go and fix the problems of distribution. And we can say all of these problems of distribution, importation, storage, and all of that is because we are still importing refined fuel. The Minister of State for Petroleum, I think, should just have admitted again that the government failed for not being able to fix any of our refineries, which will affect our local consumption needs. So instead of doing the deal, I think the man should have said that the government has failed to fix our refineries and ensure that we're able to refine locally. People have made distribution more easy.
Right. Thank you very much, Fuad. The full story, of course, is on page 13 of the Vanguard newspaper. All the other headlines here are headlines that we have addressed earlier. Naira swap, Wike hails Supreme Court reversed to join suit. Other headlines: Article 6 removal of Lagos REC over alleged partisanship. This has also been discussed. IMF pushes for fiscal monetary policy reforms in Nigeria. I think this is more or less a continuation of the IMF's advice that the February 10 deadline be suspended, and well, they should allow people more time to swap their old notes for the new notes. That's it for the Vanguard newspaper. Let's look through the Nation newspaper. Headline, of course: relief, joy as Supreme Court halts CBN deadline on old Naira. Reverse seek to join suit. World Bank, IMF, deadline ill-conceived. We've spoken about this on Let's Forward. There's a new perspective that you'd like us to explore.
Yeah, I think basically we are so fast to talk about the fact that, look, the cashless policy is not anything new all over the world. Countries that have been able to do it have the technology. They were able to build on the technology. There's enough internet service to get these things done and all of that. We need to ask ourselves, what the part of Nigeria is covered with internet now as we speak? Even public power. You'll be shocked that more than 50% of the country is not even connected to the national grid in terms of power. pockets of internet access. So the reality is that whatever they are trying to force to the state of Nigerians, we don't have the technology to do it. When they say you can do transfer. I think everybody is in Lagos. Even in Lagos now, everybody because to do transfer. Sorry?
Even the urban centers are not having a great time. The rural areas.
Yesterday, somebody went to the bank in our office, said they closed at 11 o'clock because again, there's too much glitch in the system.
What do you want to do?
So, I think it's just admit that look, the policy very good, the plan for implementation was wrong.
All right. So you said we don't have the technological resources yet. So what we need is time, right? It's not a suspension of the policy. It's time to fix foundational issues.
If you remember the Sanusi time at the CBN, sorry, you remember, there were a lot of upgrades in the banking system. That was when technology was introduced. What it did then, we had a lot of mushroom banks. So what it did was that it did recapitalization for us to have stronger, more efficient banks. And that was the era where we now started to see banks having ATM machines, the cardless policy, the card policy came up, we saw more of cashless policy. So it was a well checked out policy. There was improvement in the service of the bank, we saw more efficient banking sector and all of that. So yes, if we're going to drive the cashless policy, it has to be gradual. We can't just do it this way. It has to be gradual. I think if we want to mop up illegal funds, we agree with that. But you have to also make that available to Nigerians who are not yet fully banked. Even the banks in the cash should do their normal daily transactions. That's what I say. If I go to the bank today, say that there's cash, nobody's going to complain. Because there's no cash anywhere. That's why people are complaining.
All right. Okay, let's move on. There's another headline here. Nigeria Air to fly soon. Sirika assures Nigerians. Rider to this. FEC okays 117.721 billion for Oloibiri Oil Museum, Kano Airport maintenance. So the aviation minister Hadi Sirika said Nigeria Air will soon begin flight operation. He said the minister said the federal government had completed the initial processes and that it was at the point of sealing the last move in obtaining the air operator certificate to enable the national carrier start flying. The national carrier, when is it going to start carrying? Because I don't know, it's too long. It's too long. I don't know if this is supposed to be too long. Is this supposed to be this long, the process?
Even if I follow the story, I think the last time we discussed the issue of Air Nigeria, the question was what exactly are we going to do from this? What are the benefits of having a national carrier? What are the benefits of having a national carrier that would be almost 50% or 60% operated by foreign airline,
Ethiopia, yeah.
So you ask yourself, because again, the local airlines, I think, are going to pursue several things. Because the argument is that, look, so what exactly is the benefit? They are only giving the opportunity for the foreign airlines to come and dominate at the domestic space. Because the argument is simply done and they do have the aircraft. They are relying on Ethiopia Airlines to supply the aircraft. And so you ask yourself, why is the Minister of Aviation so desperate about this? Why are we pushing for? There are also the questions about vested interest.
Yeah.
Because there are also questions about the consultant having this issue that he has a stake in it, although it's an allegation. But we need to ask ourselves, if we don't have what it takes to run a proper national carrier, can we just leave it? We have not had a national carrier for how many years now? Have we died? Have Nigerians been going about their normal life? So what is the benefit for Nigerians that the Minister of Aviation that is going to leave very, very, very soon? We say definitely about this thing. Because the government ends when?
What? They will soon finish. Okay, because he says, I'm quoting now, there are 5 stages. We've done stages 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we are now at stage 5. So they will soon finish. Let's allow them finish.
Okay.
They will soon finish.
Maybe when we're out of government, just imagine a new government comes and they don't believe in all of this. What happens? So all of the wala.
They will not cancel stage 1 and 4. They cannot do such. Anyway, that's that again. On page 6 of the Nation newspaper is where you find the story well, funny enough, that's pretty much everything that they're reporting. The rest is just reports on campaign and what have you. That's it for the Nation newspaper. Let's spend the time that we have left looking at the Punch newspaper. World Bank, IMF warns CBN. Supreme Court stops February deadline. Shortage of new note has caused hardship, disrupted trade and payment, says the IMF. Protest rocks Abuja as Tinubu El Rufai hail judgment. Malami asks court to dismiss suit. We also have here 195 per litre impossible, marketers insist. I think this is also something that we have addressed whilst we were analysing the situation previously. Marketers are saying the price that you have put forward is not beneficial to us. We're not in business to make losses, we're in business to make profit. So I think that's about it. I did not offer to buy kidney, Ekweremadu tells UK court. So this is still in the court of law, and like, of course, we've also always said it might not be in anybody's best interest to talk about matters that are in court at this particular moment. But definitely from this you would see that Ekweremadu is pleading not guilty to the charge. So maybe we should wait to see what happens at the end of the day. They take us to
on the issue of the market, I think the NNPC and the Minister of State Secretary should just come out and address Nigerians and say, look, independent marketers, this is how you have been getting your product. This is how much you have been selling to you. And then allow the independent marketers to now debunk it and say, no, you are not selling to us at this price.
right.
So it's not just the blame game. They should come out and say to independent marketers, these are the debtors that you have been loading from. And this is how much you have been selling to you. So it is wrong for you to have been selling at $300 or above $300 per litre. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
The major marketers have their debtors, some of them have debtors and all of that, and they are able to directly address it from NNPC. So they should tell us, independent marketers, these are the areas where you are buying food, and these are the price you are selling to you, and it's unjustified that you are selling at this price. And then we cannot really put the independent marketers at the problem.
All right. Well, that's about it. Other headlines here. Turkey. Okay, this is international story. INEC appeals Osun poll judgments, defends Adeleke's victory. If we can, in a minute, for the Independent National Electoral Commission has appealed the judgment of the Election Petition Tribunal that nullified the victory of Osun State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke in the July 16 governorship poll. This was expected. I think you called it. They'll definitely have to appeal, right?
No, initially I think INEC said they won't be appealing, but I think they reversed their decision not to appeal, so which is good for Adeleke. Now that INEC has decided to appeal that judgment, I'm sure Adeleke to have done that, so we have to see how it goes at the appeal court.
Right. Okay, so finally, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, 805 million fraud. Fleeing Senator Umar Boshi nabbed, sent to prison. So we have court. Well, not we. I'm not a member of the EFCC, but the senator. He has been. He was he has been convicted and sentenced to 7 years in prison. He was initially sentenced, but then he ran away actually. But he has been caught again and he has been sent to prison. But I just really hope that this is not a situation where you are prosecuted, you're tried, you're found guilty, sent to prison, and then 3 months later we're here having pardoned. Let's not kill the morale of the EFCC anyways. But it's good. It's a good thing that, we're now catching criminals, we're making them pay for their crimes. Anyways, well, that's about it for trends in the papers. We will be back at 8:40 for Mainland Focus. It is open mic Thursday. Thursdays are usually so scary because I don't know the angle that the callers are going to come from. I don't know what the opinions will be. But then it's okay. We're here to accommodate all your perspective or your opinions on these matters. Open mic Thursday, which means that you can pick any of the stories in the papers and talk to us about what you feel about these stories. Sage Babalola is my name. Mainland 98.3 FM. Fuad, thank you so very much. We'll have you back at 8:40. Stay with us as the sound of Lagos.